Before we jump into the episode today, I want to share something with you from my heart. First of all, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I really can't tell you how much your support means to me. We've been doing the podcast now for almost 4 years. I can't even believe it. And I'm so grateful for each and every single one of you that listens, shares an episode with your friends, sends me a DM or a text message letting me know how an episode resonated with you or any aha moments. Seriously, I couldn't be more grateful to be able to create this podcast. It has been such a blessing in my life, and I love hearing the ways it's been able to provide value in yours as well. One thing you might not know is how much work it takes to be consistent with a podcast. In fact, did you know that the majority of podcasts don't make it past episode number 10? And we are well beyond that. And it's just a lot thinking of the episodes, recording them, editing them, managing the guests, making sure that everything runs smoothly and gets uploaded consistently and regularly. And so that's why I have created an amazing opportunity for you to support the podcast monetarily. And in exchange for that, you will get exclusive premium subscriber content. So for as little as $3 a month, you can become a premium subscriber of the podcast. And every month I will upload new voice-guided workouts and breathwork meditation audio for you. So that way you can work out with me, coaching you in your ears. You can also take a moment to reduce your stress and relax and come down and ground down with one of my breathwork audios. So if that is on your heart to support the podcast for as little as $3 a month to become a premium podcast subscriber, I can't tell you how much that means to me and the growth of this podcast. I appreciate you. If you're interested, click the link in the description, become a premium podcast subscriber, new content every month, and while supplies last, I'll send you an exclusive podcast coffee mug so you can have your self-love and sweat coffee every morning. I appreciate you. Now let's get into the show. Welcome to Self-Love and Sweat, the podcast, the place where you'll get inspired to live your life unapologetically, embrace your perfect imperfections, break down barriers, and do what sets your soul on fire. I'm your host, Lunden Souza. Hey friend, it's me, Lunden Souza, online lifestyle transformation coach. I help people all over the world just like you who know they are meant for more, get their mind right and their body tight, and go from crazy busy to crazy happy. And hey, if it's our first time meeting, welcome. So happy to have you. And if you've been with us for a while, it's so great that you're here too. I'm really excited to share this episode of the Self-Love and Sweat podcast with you. Hey, I want to tell you quickly about 2 ways that you can get connected beyond the podcast to up-level your health, your life, your fitness, reach your goals, but also support the podcast as well. So the first option is our Self-Love and Sweat monthly members-only meetup. We meet up on the last Saturday of the month on Zoom for 90 minutes to cover some important topics, to answer your questions, and then to also do a workout together. It's a great way to have that support, have that accountability, get supercharged, and get reminded that there are other people all over the world on this journey of self-love and sweat, and you don't have to do it alone. You can join your first month for only $1 using code SELFLOVE1 at checkout, and then it's $27 a month after that. So you go to lifelikeLondon.com/monthly, use the code SELFLOVE1 at checkout to try us out, test it out for only $1 for your first month, and then you can be on board to listen to the podcast, join up on the meetups, and just really feel like you're connected and thriving on this journey to reach your goals. The second option is our Strong at Home for Women 8-week dumbbell-only workout plan. We have women all over the world getting stronger from the inside out right at home, right? So we're ready to take action to get stronger despite the circumstances of the world. And we know that we're not about to do that alone. So embark on this 8-week journey with us. You can go to lifelikeLondon.com/strong at home. You can pick up your 8-week plan. And the exciting thing is that every 8 weeks, we open it up, myself and my co-coach, for VIP all access coaching with us. So not only do you get the plan, but you get Zoom fireside chats with us. You get an exclusive way to chat with us anytime so you can ask your questions, share your progress. And we're always continuing to stay connected and motivate and inspire each other on our journey to get stronger, no matter what that means for us. So if you know that you're meant for more, you're ready to get stronger from the inside out, and you're just like, yes, I need a plan and some structure, something to tell me what to do. I know I'm ready, but I need that coaching. I can't do it alone. We are here for you. You can go to lifelikeLondon.com/strong at home, pick up the plan, figure out when our next VIP all access registration is opening so you can get that support and guidance. And the third thing, I said there was two, but the third thing is you can do both. You can join us for those monthly meetups. You can be there for the 8-week program. You know, this coaching and this support is here for you. We want to get you real results that last so you never have to start over again. And so you guys are awesome. Enjoy this episode. Get connected. Self-love and sweat, friends. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Self-Love and Sweat, the podcast. I'm super excited about our guest today because he's been here before and we had such a great conversation about motivation. And our guest today is Paul Levitin. He is a health and happiness coach. Paul, thanks for being here again.
Thank you for having me, Lunden. You know, it's my favorite thing to get a chance to talk to you. And last time was such a good time that I'm excited to get to do it again.
Yeah, it was such a great episode. And I often allude to that episode in other episodes or other teachings, because I think we had a really great conversation. And for those of you listening, after you listen to this one, go back and listen to our first episode that Paul and I did together. I'll put it in the show notes. But how are things on the East Coast? How is life as a health and happiness coach?
Life is excellent right now. It is spring has finally sprung here in New York City. It was a long and cold winter, and now it's warm out, and that makes me the happiest person alive because I can be outside again. I just like to be outside in the sunshine and be able to ride my bike and hike and walk and do all those fun things. So once that happens, I'm pretty happy. That I don't take much.
Right, that nature medicine and getting outdoors, it always feels super good. Super good. I know you were shoveling snow for a while. I remember the last time we talked, or even when we first met on Clubhouse, you're like, yeah, that's like my exercise or my NEAT to my non-exercise like activity to keep me moving was shoveling the snow. And I know how good the sun feels. So I'm happy for you. Have you been hiking? Have you been biking? What have you been doing outdoors?
I bike a lot. So I just pretty much, once it goes above by like 65 degrees or something like that, I pretty much try not to drive anywhere. I try to bike everywhere. I try to bike as much as I can. I mean, Brooklyn, where I live, is a big city, and yet it's really pretty small, like miles wise. Like from one end of Brooklyn to the other is like 7 miles or something like that, which is like on a bike, not the worst thing. So I tend to bike around a lot. And because of that, I always get like, people are always like, oh, are you like dieting right now? It's like, no, I just stopped driving and just started riding my bike like a lot more because I end up losing weight because I'm riding my bike everywhere. I haven't been on any hikes yet, but walks, I go, like there's a lot of parks here. So it's not really hikey as much as it is, walks, but I can do hikes. Like you just have to travel outside of the city a bit. But it's always on my plan, my schedule.
Nice. Yeah, I love biking too. I think it always feels really good. And when I lived in Austria, I would bike to work in spring as well. And it took me, I was like 40 minutes, and it was just like such a nice time just to, like disconnect. And I love the phone and social media and stuff. And I'm always, trying to set personal boundaries, but sometimes it's nice just to be like, okay, well, I'm on a bike and like, technically I cannot be on my phone and bike ride. So I'm biking and going, and that always feels super, super good. But being out in nature, hiking, I love all of it too. It's super relaxing. And I feel like even though we're excited about spring and everything, it's been yeah, it's been a year. And so I feel like even coming out, even in the spring vibes, like personally, I'm feeling really called to nature too, like being outside, fresh air, dirt under the fingernails, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, for sure. I was over the winter here in New York, I was like going through a little bit of that like claustrophobia because I'm a tiny little apartment and like all this other stuff. And I was legitimately looking at places to move in like Texas and South Carolina and Tennessee. And I was like contacting realtors. I was like going through the motions. And then like the first 70-degree day I went outside and I was like, oh, I don't want to leave New York. I was just cold, like I just missed sunshine. And like, now I'm like, I forgot that I actually love New York during the summertime. And now I'm like much less stressed to move away because now I can actually be outside. So there's something to be said about just vitamin D and being outside and touching your feet on the actual ground. It's real. I believe in it.
Yeah, no, totally. And even when I lived in Austria and it would be like snowing or more winter per se, I would often sign up for like races or events or things that were like in early spring, because that really like forced me to go outside, bundle up, get the gear, be outside in the elements, because of course it was safe. I mean, there's sometimes you're like not trucking in the snow when it's like that outside, but it was just like, yeah, there was snow, but some of the paths were open. And that was really helpful because coming from California and then being there, it was like a really big shock to not have, like direct sunlight on your skin, like 4 months out of the year or something like that. So yeah, there is a lot to be said about vitamin D and the sunshine medicine, but that's another episode, another day. But today I want to talk to you about, and our conversation is really going to be geared towards like getting out of our own way. And ways that we, like even me and Paul ourselves, like have gotten in our own ways, but also like a lot of what we hear from our clients and see from a lot of the clients that we work with Paul as a health and happiness coach and myself as a fitness and lifestyle transformation coach, is we see it a lot. And we're oftentimes not very, we're not that different as we think that we are. There's a lot of ways we can very similarly get in our own ways. And I've been creating a lot of content geared toward this topic. And I had a call with now VIP client yesterday. And that was something she wrote in that application, is just like, I feel like I'm getting in my own way over and over again. And we really talked about and explored that and what that meant for her. So yeah, that's today's topic. And when I asked Paul before, I was like, hey, okay, we're talking about this. We had talked about it before. I didn't just spring the topic on you, but I was like, are you excited about this topic? And you're like, what'd you say?
Always, because this is everything. I mean, this is the thing, right? Getting out of your own way. If you can figure that out, you have won, because we're the only ones that hold us back. There really is, if we're being honest with ourselves. The reason I'm so passionate about this, and I've done entire courses just on this topic and taught courses on this topic and have my own podcasts and tutorials and things on this, is because we are the only ones that can hold us back. Like we can blame and excuse and all these other things our way all the way around the world. But in reality, if we're truly honest with ourselves, we are the thing that gets in our own way. And that means that if we can not do that, if we cannot get in our own way, if we cannot hold ourselves back, if we cannot be the only thing stopping us, then that opens up literally the world of possibilities. And, you can then accomplish anything.
Right? A podcast over. You can accomplish all things. No, but it really is like the ultimate, like, and one. It's the ultimate, like, win, is like that ownership. I often refer to that as, ownership of just saying like, hey, like my coach that I worked with, who I love, Diane Kaiser, she used to call it PTFD, point the finger disorder. And she would just be like, when we stop, pointing at all the things outside ourselves. And then even with my work in meditation and just like diving deeper in there, it's like the more that we can, stop looking outside of ourselves for our circumstances, other people, other situations to be X, Y, or Z for us to take action or to do something, is just like, yeah, it's a waste of time. It's such a waste of time, but it can be really, scary to look in that mirror and be like, hey, you self, has been you all along. And so we're not saying, it's the easiest trek, but it's the most worthwhile. And I just feel like every time I can just ask myself like, hey, how can I show up better and take more ownership? I feel like that's, it's always the and one, or they call it now. What do the kids say these days? The ultimate flex. The ultimate flex. Isn't that what they say? I haven't seen that.
Maybe.
Right? The
It's a,
ultimate flex
it's a big,
is, I
it's a big,
swear I've seen it.
something like that. Yeah. I mean, first of all, you're right. Literally everything is easier said than done. So, we can just push that right out to the side. Obviously, all of this stuff is easier to talk about than to implement. If it was easy to implement, it would already be done. Right. Anything that we're talking about here, this is the thing that's inherent in change, inherent in anything that we have to have a podcast about, and anything that you need to get training on. It's hard. Because if it wasn't, you wouldn't need to listen to a podcast on it. You wouldn't need to have a coach. You wouldn't need to pay someone. All of these things. No one sets a goal to brush their teeth. No one sets a goal to tie their shoe. No one sets a goal to watch more Netflix, because those things are easy. And when things are easy, they happen naturally. So we have to understand that anything that I'm thinking like, wow, I really want to do more of X. I really need to get out of my own way. I really need to floss, right? But you might brush your teeth, but you might not floss, right? Because it's hard. And we just so it's like, it's always easier said than done. It's always easier to talk about things than to actually implement them. So people are like, oh, well, Paul, it's, it's so easy for you to talk about, but like, it's not that easy. And like, well, yeah, I know. I get it. I'm not saying that it's easy, but it is important, and it's worthwhile. And that's really the point of it. It's not easy. And most things worth having aren't, the reality, I mean, there's so many different people who have talked about things like this, but where I first got kind of put on to this whole concept, and like what really kind of opened me up, I might have talked about it on the last podcast, but I talk about this book a lot. It's one of my favorites, is the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Dr. Stephen Covey. And one of the 7 habits is understanding your spheres of influence. And spheres of influence there's certain things that we have control over, certain things that we can influence in our life, right? And then there's another sphere of things that we are not able to influence. So that no matter what we do, it doesn't have any effect on that thing, right? So in reality, anything that we spend energy on that is outside of our sphere of influence is inherently wasted energy, because I can't change that thing, right? So the consummate example is traffic. Okay. I can be driving along, and if I'm stuck in traffic, no amount of me being angry at traffic will just make the traffic go faster. I can kick and scream and honk my horn and curse, and I can do all the things that I want to, but the traffic is going to be the traffic. Okay. But what can I control? I can control the way I drive. I can control leaving earlier so I don't get stuck in traffic. I can control leaving a bigger time gap, so in case I do get stuck in traffic, that I'm not late for the meeting I'm going to. I can control my mood while I'm in traffic. I can control the music that I listen to, or a million other things. So that's kind of where the getting out of your own way stuff comes in, because that's what you can control. Yeah, like, yes, all these excuses can be real. I have kids that are being homeschooled, and I have to work late, and I have to do this, and I have to do this, and all of that stuff is very real. But what can you control? So anything right there, anything that you're focusing on that is outside of your control, that's a form of getting in your own way, because you're wasting energy, and energy is finite. And we only have so much of it. Just like we only have so much time in the day, we only have so much energy. When you wake up in the morning, you're most energized. Well, maybe after a few minutes after you had your coffee, maybe, or something like that. But you have a lot more energy in the morning, right? But by the end of the night, if you think you're really going to be the most productive at 10:30 at night after you woke up at 7 o'clock in the morning, it's probably not going to happen. In the same way that we have less willpower, in the same way that all this stuff kind of goes. So it's like, if we're wasting our finite amount of energy fighting with traffic, that is literally the epitome of us getting in our own way, because it's like, you're not doing anything there. You're just purely being wasteful. So if you can stop that, now you have all that energy that would have been wasted on that can now be put towards something that actually is productive.
Can you imagine yelling at the person, or let's say being in the passenger seat with the person, and being like, you're wasting energy right now. Stop wasting, but I love that. And even as a mental cue to be like, stop wasting, like when you're in that space of like leaning into giving a ton of energy to something that's outside of your control, that no matter any amount of anger, frustration, whatever, like I just took that from what you said there, is just like, stop wasting, and I think of that a lot too, just even in my own like personal and professional interests. Like I like to not waste food and to minimize plastic waste and all those different types of things. So in my brain, that really like fits and works well. And like you said, you're wasting pieces of this finite energy. And I think of, I guess traffic is, a super great example. And I guess I can remember a time when I would be more pissed off in traffic. Granted, I spent a lot of time driving in my early 20s down in Southern California. So I'm sure I got pissed off by traffic a time or two. But I wrote down some ways that I feel like I've gotten in my own way that are like my traffic example. You know what I mean? And so I feel like I'm going to share, I would share these two with you. And I mean, you can share yours too. I don't care if you have two or more, but these are the ones that I kind of wrote down. Getting in my own way with busy. So like getting in my own way by just piling on more and more and more onto the calendar of things to do, was really actually getting in my own way of doing the things that needed to get done in order to get to where I said I wanted to be, and probably like 3 years ago, I would say I took the word like busy out of my vocabulary because people were always, especially at like the height of when I was traveling, doing all the live workout parties, just everything. It was like, you're so busy. You're always busy. And then it was kind of like, oh, sorry, I didn't call you back because I was busy. And it was like, I couldn't get that done because I was busy. And I didn't like that. And the person I was striving to show up as wasn't like too busy to do those things. It was just like a matter of priorities and so I feel like I let for many years, like that busyness and me being busy and all of that really was a way that I got in my own way a ton. And then also another area was like with reaction time. So I had to really learn, and I feel like this is one of the best practices ever for everybody, is just like pause before you react. And knowing that you don't have to always like have an answer right away, how you might feel about a certain situation right off the get-go doesn't always need to be like shown front and center right away. And if you can like increase that, like almost that refractory like period of, like this is what happened. And instead of, for lack of better example, like sending that text or sending that email or just reacting right away, really opening that up. And that was a way I was continuing to get in my own way because I'd find myself then being like, embarrassed, annoyed by, or whatever my actions, and then needing to apologize for them because I didn't give myself enough reaction time and I kept doing it over and over again. And then I'm like, wait, okay, how am I getting in my own way here? And like, what can I do to ensure that like, it's not anybody else's fault that I feel this way or that I'm having to kind of have the exchanges like this in certain relationships. And really, increasing that reaction time has helped me a lot, and just kind of be like, is that really what you want to say? Is that really like, how it's going to be? Is that really how you want to show up? Which is a huge one for me too. So I feel like getting rid of that busy facade and like letting that just kind of, fade away. And then also increasing reaction time were two ways I found myself again and again, like tripping over myself.
Yeah, for sure. Both of those are huge. It's funny. I was doing a bunch of content stuff yesterday, and I literally just was writing about this quote. And it's Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning. And the quote is, between stimulus and response, there's a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lie our growth and our freedom, right? And that's exactly what you're talking about. It's that exact thing, is that is what you're just talking about is, that's what separates humans from every other animal on the planet, is the fact that we have the ability to pause and think. And yet 9 times out of 10, we don't use it, right? It's like that in and of itself is everything, because when we have a stimulus and response, right? Like as Viktor Frankl, who, if anyone listening hasn't read that book, it's one of the best books of all time, Man's Search for Meaning, which he wrote like in the Nazi concentration camps about how to maintain a mindset when going through the most negative darkness that you could possibly ever go through. But the whole stimulus and response thing is like something happens and then we respond. And that's our natural animal reaction. The human part of us, the human brain, is what allows us to think. So when we don't use that, when we don't take that time, we are just going based on our lowest level thinking, which there's nothing wrong with that sometimes, but sometimes that's always going to pander to kind of the lowest common denominator, the easiest safety thing, right? Everything comes back to safety and our brains.
Well, yeah, if like the stimulus says run and your response needs to be ASAP, that's very different, right? So right. Of course it's base level because it's like built in us. When certain things happen, it's like we need to, what's next, right. But not all situations need that at all.
Right. But so say, take this example of like your boss yelling at you, right? Or someone yelling at you, get into an argument. to our brain in our immediate fight or flight response, that is danger, right? So their brain's immediate response might be to curse them out or to yell or to get defensive, right? But if you think about it, you might say, well, I'm actually not in physical danger. I'm actually not in real danger. So the way our brain interprets these things is not truly how it is, because again, it only knows safety or danger. Those are the only two options to our brain. But in reality, we know there's many more options than that. There's lots of stuff. I could be upset without it actually being in physical danger. So by allowing ourselves to have just that second to pause, be like, okay, maybe I can think about this. Maybe I should, before I just blurt out a response, I should probably, take a second to go over my words. And I mean, this goes all the way down to things like as simple as eating or exercising, right? Most people, what happens? You get a craving and you eat it. It's stimulus response. I want, I do. I want, I do. There's no thought. Usually, if we think, and I know this from my many years as a nutrition coach, people will say something like, oh, I know I wasn't supposed to eat all that ice cream, but I did anyway. Well, it's like, well, if you knew you weren't supposed to, then why did you? Well, because I wanted it and I did. If you would have given yourself just maybe 30 seconds to think like, do I really want to eat this? And then you might think, well, if I eat this, I'm going to mess up the diet, so to speak, that I've been on for X amount of days. I'm going to feel bad about myself. I'm going to be angry. I'm going to maybe feel sick because my stomach doesn't actually agree with me when I eat ice cream and all these other things. And just giving your second a brief pause to logically think for a second, you might say, okay, maybe actually I can not have ice cream right now. But when we don't give ourselves that, again, it doesn't have to be a 30 minutes or something. It's just a 30-second time to just breathe and pause and think logically for just a second. It can change all of the way that we act and react to something.
Yeah. And like, even on the ice cream topic, because that is real. And I like my oat milk ice cream for sure, but to think, okay, do I really want this? Well, yeah, I do. But do I need to take this container like to the couch?
Right.
That happens in my refractory period. I'm like, nope, I get a coffee mug, 2 big spoons, and I like the one that I get, and it's super delicious. And it's satisfying, and you know what I mean? And then there's also ways to say like, yeah, to kind of reframe it as like, okay, yeah, I'm going to have it. It's not a matter of yes or no. And then I'm kind of reframe how I, kind of think after that. But totally, I think even just pausing to think even about your healthy freaking meal is great. To look at it, appreciate it, look at the ingredients there. Like that's, super, super major is that pause time there.
Right. For sure.
What about you? What about ways you feel like?
I mean, how do I get in my own way? How don't I? One way.
That was my question too. I just didn't feel like I wanted to list all of my shortcomings today.
The thing that you kind of said was like the word busy. So for me, like it kind of, but like for me, it's busy work, right? Where it's like I do like all of this. I do more stuff. But in reality, it's not the thing that I know I need to be doing. But it's like I placate myself by being like, oh, but I did so much stuff today. Like I read so many books and I answered emails and I worked out and I did all this stuff. But it's like, but did you actually work on X, Y, and Z, which is the one key metric that you really need to work on? It's like, well, no, I didn't do that, but I did all this other stuff, And it's the understanding of being busy for a reason versus just being busy. And I think that one is okay. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I guess it's theoretically better that I'm doing something rather than just sitting around. But in reality, it's kind of the same thing because I'm not actually doing the thing that I need to do. Right. And it just makes me feel better about it. So I can feel some false sense of superiority and be like, well, I didn't watch Netflix all day. Instead, I worked out. But it's like, okay, but I didn't work on my business. I didn't work on growing my brand or podcasting or whatever the thing that I'm really supposed to be working on is. So that's a huge one for me personally.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Because we also, as, coaches and, wearing a lot of the hats, there's a lot of things that can get done. And there's a lot of things that like at the end of the day, we really can pat ourselves on the back and be like, we crushed it. We still did all this. And there's so much power in that, we need to have a little, compassion and whatever. But I know what you mean where you're like, oh, well, actually like those 10 things I did today, like nothing major in the whole world or with anyone would have changed or been impacted left or right if I did not do those. And had I spent said time on this, but I think we all listening and everybody, can raise your hand to say like, okay, what's that thing that you kind of, get distracted. Like you purposely kind of let yourself get distracted by and with to be like, okay, well, at least I did that.
Yeah.
But it's also great to have that foundation that like, no matter what, this will get done, So it's kind of like that dance there. But I know what you mean with that busy work where you're like, I can do all the things, but I don't know what things first.
Yeah.
And having to seek that clarity over and over to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's also like one of those things. I mean, and this is, well, one, that the whole busy work thing is huge. I work with a lot of entrepreneurs and like type A people. So like those like big CEO type is like, again, because in 2021, where we are recording this, right? I don't know when people are going to be maybe listening to this in the future, but as of 2021 and recording this, there's never an end of stuff to do. Like there's never, if you are living in the modern world with a smartphone in your pocket that is giving you push notifications, that is sending your emails, that you're got to pick up your kids, and then you got to do this, and then you got to do that, and you got to do that. There's never an end of things. So it's like, if the goal is to just do more things, you'll always find more things to do. But something I always used to focus on as a personal trainer, and this was like big that I had to get all of my clients to understand, is that like more is not better. Better is better. Right. So it's like people used to be like, oh, well, I'm working out more. I'm doing more. Right? I'm restricting my calories more. But it's like that's not the goal. The goal is to have efficiency. The goal is to get the most out of the time that you are doing. The goal is to do the thing that you know that you're supposed to do. And that's where I think a lot of people hold themselves back, myself included, is getting caught up in the just like, okay, more, instead of thinking, all right, like how can I most efficiently get to the bottom of this?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like a big, fat, giant boulder versus like little baby rocks in a pond, and like seeing the big impact there. But yeah, it just takes longer. And like, yeah, sometimes the satisfaction of the check mark is a little bit longer to get. So yeah, totally feel that there. Another one that came up in a conversation with one of my clients regarding to how we can get in our own ways and things like that is feeling like this overwhelming sense of needing to do things for others and also pleasing others. So like meeting the expectations of others that like we completely cloud and get in the way of, we just kind of completely cloud anything that might be in our way that we want or whatever. It's just like we're so focused on other people and all of those things that we're letting our need to do for others really get in the way of, doing the things we know we need to do for ourselves, whether it's going to the gym or preparing healthy meals or whatever. It's like, it's literally a time thing where spending so much time supporting these people in this situation that it's like completely getting in the way. And that real desire from a lot of people to want to do that and want to serve and want to help others and want to be there to shine their light and to support. But at the same time, they can kind of see, it is getting in my own way, but I don't really know how to stop. I don't want to help, stop supporting others or stop being able to be there and to shine with them and, in a time where they might need support or guidance or whatever. But at what point does it become like too much where like your yeses are just overflowing and your boundaries are like wobble central, And that wasn't something that I ever experienced. So through my clients, I've experienced that and learned more about, that being something in the way, and maybe that was like my busy, like I'm doing my own thing. I don't need to please nobody. I'm going to do my busy thing. And that was probably like my little kind of opposite there. But that was one we had a great conversation about and that, I really feel into lately.
Right. And I definitely agree. And I see that with a lot of people, but if I'm just see this conversation is making me just think about all of this and that, like, if again, coming back to where we started this conversation, which is like, if we're honest with ourselves, right? And if we're honest with ourselves, anyone who's doing any of these things usually knows that they're doing it, right? And if you know that you're doing it, that means you're doing it for a reason. Meaning, like someone like that will say, like, yeah, I know that I need to save more time for myself, but I'm doing this instead. It's like, well, like then clearly there's a reason. There's a disconnect there between you saying, like, I know that I shouldn't be doing this thing, but I'm still doing it. In the same way that, again, someone says, like, well, I know I need to be eating healthy, but then go to McDonald's, right? It's like those things are at complete opposites with each other. right? So it's like, what is the thing that's causing you to say one thing and then do another, right? And then we get into the real, like, I don't know, the muck of it, which is like, why is it that I'm holding myself back, right? So it's not like there are all these different ways are roots that all lead us to the same destination, which is that I'm self-sabotaging myself. And the reason we do that, I mean, I don't know, I'm not a therapist, but it's, usually because we are afraid of success. We are afraid of what it would mean to be that person. We're afraid of what others will think of us. There's some underlying fear there, or some pain that we're trying to keep ourselves from, or that we expect, right? It's like, oh, well, if I let these people down, if I stop showing up for them, then they're going to think less of me or something like that. So it's like, that's the real root of the issue. It's not that I'm spending all my time helping others. The point is that I won't do less for them because of X, Y, and Z. And then when I can figure that out, then we could be like, okay, well, is that really the case? Are you really going to, are they going to hate you? Are they going to turn your back? Or, because most people will understand when I say, secure your mask, or you can't pour from an empty cup, right? Most people will get those references, right? You're on an airplane, they say secure your mask first, because if you're dead, you can't help someone next to you, right? You can't pour from an empty cup, because if your cup is not full, you can't give to someone else. And most people will say that and nod their head and agree with that. And then I'll say, okay, then why are you giving so much to others that you can't give to yourself? And then they go, I don't know. So it's like there's a disconnect between these things. And again, coming back to, I talk myself in circles sometimes, but this is the hard stuff, because easier said than done, right? I can say all this stuff and I don't personally have an answer for it all the time. But I think understanding this, because sometimes I'll say this and people will say, oh, wow, I do that a lot. And then the first step to changing anything is being aware of it. Because sometimes we just do this stuff and we don't see it in ourselves, So I think that me just pointing this out is hopefully maybe someone listening will be like, oh, okay, I kind of see that I do that. And then we can maybe think about what can we do about it.
Yeah. And I think that's what this episode is all about, is just like highlighting certain things and creating awareness, supporting those aha moments. And maybe they're aha moments, but like you said, we already kind of know, ways that we're getting in our own way, but we probably just like maybe don't know that other people struggle with that too, or kind of are in the same boat. We might not know any other alternatives, which is a major one, or other ways to, just be fulfilled and satisfied through other things that we can do for ourselves. And of course, serve others effectively, and with excellence and love and all the stuff that, we want to shine our light on. But yeah, I think that, this is just, I hope you guys are, when you're listening, are thinking like, oh yeah, that is kind of, and it's not like you're bad. You didn't do anything wrong. It's just the awareness. And then every time it comes up, because certain things and patterns, you don't just notice them once and then they stop. It's like you notice them and then you're like, oh, there it is again. Okay. Let me reframe kind of that a little bit. And it keeps showing itself up a little bit, that sometimes it makes me laugh now. Sometimes I laugh.
Yeah. I mean, again, like Lunden just said, is not to be me, again, I don't think that I'm like better than, like, I don't know what I'm doing. So, that's very, and this is the reason I would say that I can speak on this stuff is because this is human stuff. This is not about Paul being any type of expert on anything. This is just me understanding humans and understanding that I can speak in these generalities and every person listening will shake their head thinking that, oh, it's just me who goes through this stuff. But now I understand that every human goes through this stuff. So the thing of wanting to please others is a deep human need, right? This is not like a you or a me or a they or a them thing. This is, look at a 6-month-old or a 2-year-old or a 1-year-old. What do? They want their mommy and daddy's attention. They want, like, what do you do what does a little kid do when you take them to a party? They want to dance in front of everyone. They want to do, like, we will always do more for others than we will for us. We will always seek to please others to our own detriment, right? I can have no food in my fridge and know that on the way home and be like, well, I guess I'll just order pizza. But then if my mom texts me and is like, hey, can you pick up milk and go to the grocery store for me? I'm going to go out of my way to do that for my mom when I wouldn't have done it for myself. Right. And this is part of why accountability works. And this is part of why groups work and things like that. But I just wanted to emphasize the fact that, this is just normal stuff. And if there was an easy answer for this stuff, again, it would already be done. The world would be perfect. We would be singing Kumbaya and harmony right now. But this is the hard stuff. This is the deep stuff that holds most people back. So I just wanted to kind of emphasize that, because I'm always like big on like again, it's this weird like tug of war of like, it's so simple and yet it's so hard. It's so simple to explain, but it's so hard to actually understand what that means or to do anything about it.
I know. I know it's the day's work. It's all in the day's work, but I think it's always inspiring for me when I hear these stories or other situations, whether it's podcasts or whatever, where you're like, okay, yeah, they're still doing the work. I'm doing the work. I'm just, kind of being a bit more aware and pointing the finger back at me to say like, okay.
Awareness. Yeah. There actually is one thing that I want, before I forget, I want to say. Are you still there?
Ownership there. So I like the podcast and I like being able to, have these longer form conversations. So that way it is and feels, a bit more like you said, it's a us thing. It's not a you thing, I thing, they thing, whatever. It's more of a we thing and an us thing. So I hope that you guys liked this episode. Check out my previous episode that Paul and I we did on motivation. And it's really powerful and awesome. And I feel like we could talk a ton all the time about a lot of these topics. But anything else you want to share or say before we close today? Anything you feel like still on your heart?
Yeah, I do actually have one more thing that I want to, when we're on the topic of getting in your own way, because this is a big one that I've dealt with a lot of my clients recently. So I realized that I see this all the time. And it's like people thinking themselves out of a good thing because of what it might look like in the future. So this is like the classic thing of like someone not wanting to start a diet because they're like, well, what about it? I'm not going to be able to do that 6 months from now. Or like someone being like, I don't want to start this workout routine because like what'll happen when I get too jacked? Or like someone being like, I don't know, like I don't want to start this business because what happens when I have to hire employees? It's like, okay, like how about we work on today? Like how about we just like people will talk themselves out of these things. Now, don't get me wrong. I do think it's important to understand that like things last into the future, right? We have to, a diet lasts, workouts, like I understand that, but I just mean people use this as a way to talk themselves out of ever starting, right? There's a saying that goes, it's the start that stops most people, right? And that's the thing. Most people will be like, if it was like, just focus on today, focus on the one thing that you have to do in this moment, and then go from there, and then go from there. I'm always saying to my clients, like, let's cross that bridge when it comes. Like people are always thinking about like, oh my gosh, like, or they'll go, oh my gosh, like, but I have a wedding coming up in 2 months. And whenever I go away on weddings, like I find it so hard to eat because there's so much food around and stuff like that. I'm like, all right, that's cool. I understand that, but that's 2 months from now. We have lots of time to work that out and plan and schedule ahead. But like, let's not use that as an excuse of why we shouldn't start right now. And I think that's a big, big thing that people hold themselves back with is like they're making excuses for things that may come up in the future before they come up.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Like we could do a whole episode on that, but I wanted to let you close it out because you're just such a good closer. Mic drops always. Sorry. Mic drops on lock is Paul. That's your new nickname. Mic drops on lock. Let everybody know about your podcast and where they can connect with you on social media.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for having me as always, Lunden. I have a podcast called the Healthy Happy Human Podcast. Again, I'm a health and happiness coach. You can just connect with me. My @ is just Paul Levitin, like my name, on social media across all platforms. So Instagram, Clubhouse, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, carrier pigeons, smoke signals, wherever you want to find me, I'm pretty much available. And I love talking about this stuff. I love talking about mindset and personal development and personal growth and health and fitness and all the things that it takes to help people live healthier, happier lives. So I'm all about it. Thank you again.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Self-Love and Sweat, the podcast. Hey, do me a favor. Wherever you're listening to this podcast, give us a review. This really helps a lot. And share this with a friend. I'm only one person, and with your help, we can really spread the message of self-love and sweat and change more lives all around the world. I'm Lunden Souza, reminding you that you deserve a life full of passion, presence, and purpose, fueled by self-love and sweat. This podcast is a Hit Spot Austria production.